Okay, so we want to open up to page 130. And that's called Achilas Cholov Li'achar Basa. So we're talking about a Gemara in Chulin, which we'll see in a second, that after you eat fleishiks, you want to eat milchiks, like cheese or milk or something. Okay, then? Now, as far as eating meat is concerned, I want to make 2 points. First of all, the concept of basar, of meat in halacha, subdivides into 3 categories. There's what's called behema, chaya, and oaf. So the difference between behema and chaya, behema is a domesticated animal like a cow, and a chaya is like a
wild animal.
A wild animal, let's say, for example, a deer. But that's not so relevant to me now, but oaf is very relevant to me because you're talking about chicken. And the question is chicken and milk. Okay, so that's one point. We'll get back to that later. And the second point I want to make is that when you eat meat, then what happens is the meat gets stuck to some extent between the teeth. So that if you're going to eat cheese right after the meat and there's still meat stuck in your mouth, then you have both meat and milk in your mouth at the same time. That's something we want to avoid. Now, let's keep in mind that according to the Torah law, the Torah says, Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev. You're not allowed to cook meat and milk together.
And what's the actual reason for that? Not cooking. I hear so many different analogies of that. I know about the mother's milk and all that.
Yeah.
That they'll not cook thy calf.
I think, Bob, whatever explanation you'll give, it's never going to be good enough. At the end of the day, it's something that we accept in the Torah. It reminds me a lot of shatnez, which means that you're not allowed to weave together a garment from wool and linen.
Nobody knows the answer for that either.
Again, there have been many speculations, Many different people have taken a shot at it, as we'd say in basketball.
I think it was the wool industry.
Yeah, it could be. But the Torah seems to be opposed to combining 2 different things that belong to 2 different worlds. And a lot of this has to do with Kabbalah and Zohar. Like, for example, in Kabbalah, you will find that wool represents the mid of chesed, and linen represents the mid of din, of gvura. Again, these are different traits and attributes, and they shouldn't be mixed together. And certainly basar and cholav are very different one from the other. Basar is protein that comes from animals that are alive. So again, you can take all this belongs to what's called the moral in Nevuchim in the Rambam. You familiar with that work? In English, it's called Guide to the Perplexed. And in that book, the Rambam makes an attempt.
I could use that book.
Yeah, a lot of laws are very perplexing, and the Rambam is going to tell me that I came up with an explanation for these laws. But truth be told, that after everything is said and done, they're all just human speculations. There's a divine law, and the Torah says you cannot cook meat and milk together. And then the Torah says you're not allowed to eat the combination of meat and milk. But what combination of meat and milk? Let's say I have a bowl of milk here on the table, and I take a piece of meat and I dip it into the milk. According to the Torah, am I allowed to eat that meat? I am, because I didn't cook it. I just dipped a piece of cold meat into cold milk.
I was going to say, whether it's hot or cold. Yes,
now, if it's hot...
Cold meat with cold milk.
Everything's cold. So if one of the 2 is hot, let's say I put cold meat into hot milk, boiling hot milk, or vice versa. If, let's say, I took cold milk and I put it into a sizzling piece of hot meat, that could be a problem of bishul. That might be a biblical prohibition.
Then it's the 160th, right?
Right, correct. That's the Mishnah of Tipas Cholov, where if it's not no Saint Tom, if that piece of milk, that drop of milk that fell into meat did not give a taste, let's say it's less than a ratio of 1 to 60, let's say it's 1 to 61, then, but all I'm trying to point out is that when we say that you can't eat meat and then eat milchiks, meaning cheese or butter or milk, that's all a rabbinic zera. The Torah doesn't prohibit you to eat even meat and milk in the same mouth. The only prohibition is after you cook it together. Brent, is this new to you or this is old hat to you?
I think I've heard that before.
I mean, it's a very important point. No, Bob, you never heard of it?
That. No.
So this is very important. We have to understand that what we're dealing with here are gzeros. Gzeros means when the Rabbanan put a fence around the Torah, they're afraid that if you'll combine milk and meat, then at some point you might even cook them together. Or like you said
but
before,
if you have meat that's, let's say, a jerky, which
Right.
is cold,
right?
you can have technically you can drink milk with it.
According to the Torah, you could drink milk with it.
Derabanan.
The Rabbanan are going to prohibit it. You know, we always differentiate between a doraisa and a gzera. And what we're dealing with tonight about eating milk after meat, that's all a gzera. That's all a rabbinic prohibition. What do you say?
Declaration.
Right, an injunction that the Rabbanan made in order to avoid the possibility that if you mix meat and milk, you might come to cook it together and then eat it, which you're not allowed to do.
Go back to what you said, you put in your teeth.
Speak a little louder because
Let's see.
Jeremy also wants to.
When you have meat stuck in your teeth, as you mentioned, right? And you really shouldn't put milk in down your mouth now because you had meat, right? I wait 6 hours, let's say. That meat is stuck in my mouth. I can't get it out. It's stuck in my
Right.
teeth. Can I eat that
No,
now?
no,
No, right?
we're going to see it inside. If you want to take a look, I don't know, Brent, do you like to see a text inside? No, but you like to see a text inside?
No, good.
All right, if you want to, it's on page 130. Just take a look on page 130 so you see what the page looks like. So the Gemara tells us in Chulin on Daf Kuf Hey Omer Aleph. Omer Rav Chizda, Achal Basar, he ate meat, Asur Lechol Gvina, he's not allowed to eat cheese. Now, cheese means anything that's milchik. But notice that Rav Chizda doesn't tell us exactly at what point I can finally eat cheese. It can't be that for the rest of my life, because I ate a piece of meat, I can't eat cheese. So Omar Rav Ukva, Mar Ukva says the following. If I compare myself to my father, it's like comparing vinegar to wine. You know, vinegar is like lower on the echelon. Because when my father would eat meat, he would not eat milk for 24 hours. What's called me'es la'es. So he would look at his clock.
Is that written anywhere?
Right here in the Gemara.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's on page 130 if you want to follow it. Anola ha milsa, Kala bar chamra. I am considered like chometz to yayin legabi abba. Why? Dil abba, my father, ki avi achel bisra ha'idna, when he ate meat at this particular moment in time, lo avi achel gvina, he would not eat cheese ad lemachar hashta until tomorrow at the same time, a full 24 hours. Bilana, but I'm not on the level of my father. Ana b'hasauda hudiach lo achilna. In this particular meal, I will not eat milk because I ate meat in this meal. But if it's a separate meal, a different seuda, then I will eat milk. How long is he waiting between one seuda and the other?
Yeah.
Sounds like he's not waiting anything at all. He's just separating one seuda from the other. Now you might ask me, how do I determine when one seuda terminates and a new one begins? What would be your...
If you say, I'm making a revenge.
Correct. If you recite Birkas HaMazon, then you've effectually ended one seuda, and immediately you could start a new seuda.
So then
Like,
I
for
could have
example, on
milk-
Shavuos,
Sure.
how many people here like to eat milchika cheese balinces? I have friends who like milchika cheese balinces more than they like a steak. I think they're a little bit loony bins, but they love cheese balinces. Now, on Yontif, the Torah requires v'samachta b'chagecha. How do you achieve simcha? You have to eat meat.
Unless you're a vegetarian or a vegan.
So I don't know about those people. I thank God none of them are part of my family. But anyway,
Who is it?
vegans and
Oh,
all these different types, So what do I do on Yontif? On the one hand, I want to eat meat because ain't simcha b'basar. You have to eat meat on Yontif. But on the other hand, I want to eat cheese balinces, right? So what am I going to do? After I finish my meat meal, I want to eat cheese balinces. I can't eat cheese, says Rav Chizda, in the same meal that I ate meat. So I separate the meal. I bench.
Walk around the block.
Okay, I don't know if I have to walk around the block. I mean, that's always good exercise, especially after a heavy meat meal. So if you take a look at the Rush, who wrote a commentary on Masechta Chulin, that's very, very fundamental. He writes, Bismana, at that time, Ragil Adam Lisod, Hainu Mizman Sudas, Haboka Atzman Sudas Erev. He says, how do you determine what is the new Suda? You make a time determination. How much time passes between the eating of one Suda and the eating of a second Suda? Now, at our time, how many meals do we eat per day? At least 3. We live in a very affluent society. But back in the time of Chazal, how many meals did they eat per day? Only 2. They had one Sudas HaBoker and another Sudas HaErev. And how much time would pass between the morning Suda and the evening Suda?
Sounds like around 6 hours.
Probably a lot more than 6 hours. I'll tell you, for us today, it would probably be about 6 hours. Let's say I ate lunch at 1 and I eat dinner at 8 or 7. So 6 hours passed. But at that time, they had breakfast and they had dinner. That's a lot more than 6 hours, except in the wintertime. Perhaps in the wintertime, in those days, they went to sleep very early. When did they go to sleep? When it got dark. So in the wintertime, it gets dark, let's say as early as 4 o'clock. They would eat their breakfast, let's say, Lamazogin at 10 in the morning. And a short time later, they would eat their dinner because after dinner, they would go to sleep at a very early hour. But basically, according to the Rush, there's no determination here of ending one Suda in which you ate meat and beginning another Suda, because there's a time factor. How long would they wait between one Suda and another? So let's say 10 hours, let's say 12 hours, whatever number you come up with. And that's the opinion of the Rush. However, the Rambam says that although I agree we have to wait for the time from one Suda to the other, we can't just finish one Suda and say I finished and now eat immediately another Suda of milchiks. No, the Rambam says I have to wait a period of time. But how long is that period of time? 6 hours. That's the Rambam Shita. And what that means is that in those days, when they finished one Suda, 6 hours later, they were hungry enough to eat another Suda. And it could be that during the winter months, that's what it was. If you add 6 hours to 10 a.m., you'll end up with 4 p.m., correct? So at 4 p.m., they were already eating their main meat meal at the end of the day. So from one Suda to the other is a period of time which the Rambam defines as what? 6 hours.
So
That's providing you had meat in for breakfast.
Well, it doesn't have to be breakfast, but from the meat meal to eat a milchik, and you don't even have to eat a meal. You want to put a cheese in your piece of cheese in your mouth. You've got to wait 6 hours.
Even after milchik?
No. I'm talking about a case where he ate a meat meal, and now he wants to eat a piece of cheese. How long does he wait? 6 hours. That's the Rambam.
So
The only-
we hold the Rambam, the majority of people that I know at least Hold on, right? So where do the people who hold 3 in 1, the Dutch and the Germans?
Excellent
where,
question.
Where do they get that from then?
Excellent, excellent.
they-
That's on page
who's wrote that?
132. So let's just finish up with 131, and then we'll get to 132. I'm just trying to follow the order here of this book, which is called Tzurba Derabanan. Okay, then? Now, the Lechem Mishnah points out, he's one of the commentaries on the Rambam. The Rambam says, Kimoshe Shos. He doesn't say 6 hours. He says like 6 hours. Apparently, it means that
At least
it's
6 hours.
coming close to 6 hours. It's like 6 hours. Okay, we'll get back to that a little
That's
bit
the
later.
people say, oh, into the 6 hour.
Excellent. So now we're on page 131. Says Tosfos, you've got to eat meat in one Suda, and in order to eat milk, you have to wait to another Suda. But you don't have to wait a matter of time. Says Tosfos, just end one Suda and then start another Suda. How do you do that? Number one, Siluk HaShulchan. In those days, everyone had their own table, a small table. And when you finished the meal, you took away the table, or at least you cleared off the table. And number two, says Tosfos, Ubirech. Birech means he recited Birkas Hamazon. So that according to Tosfos, immediately after you complete one Suda of meat, you can eat milchiks. You don't have to wait any amount of time. You just have to complete the Suda. How do you end the Suda? By being Masalik the Shulchan, taking away the table. And number two, by reciting Birkas Hamazon. Then you've completed one Suda, and you're ready to what? To eat cheese. You don't have to look at your clock. Could you imagine, according to Tosfos, this whole business about waiting a certain period of time between meat and milk doesn't exist. You just have to wait from one Suda to another Suda, which is not measured by time, but by the termination of one Suda in order to begin another one. How do you terminate a Suda? These are the ways you do it. However, Tosfos quotes Rabbeinu Tam, and Rabbeinu Tam adds another 2 conditions. Number one, says Rabbeinu Tam, you need nitila. You got to wash your hands. Why do you have to wash your hands?
Get the meat off that.
Correct, because you might have a film of meat on your hands. And then once again, when you pick up the cheese, you are combining meat and milk. Number two, said Tosfos, you need kinuach hapeh. You got to rinse your mouth out. So let's go over the 4 conditions that Tosfos sets in order to allow you to eat milk immediately after meat without waiting at all. What are the 4 conditions?
Wash your hands.
Birkat Hamazon.
So let's start with the table, right? You have to, number one, Siluk HaShulchan. Number 2, Birkat Hamazon. Number 3, wash
Rinse
your
your
hands.
mouth.
And number 4, rinse out your mouth. 4 conditions. How long will it take you to do that?
6 hours.
Not 6 hours. Birkas Hamazon doesn't have to take you more than 3 minutes. But the point is that we're not measuring it by time. This is not the sheet of the Rosh, nor the sheet of the Rambam. The Rosh says that the time it takes from morning till evening, and the Rambam defines it as 6 hours. Tosfos says, forget about counting time. Just end one Suda and begin another Suda.
Was he a liberal?
I don't know. I don't like that word. It gets me very nervous, because you
Left-
start with liberal and then you end
left-
up with women doing this and so forth and so on. All right.
Rabbi Barazan,
Yes, please, Jim.
what does the waiting have anything to do with eating basar b'chalav that's been cooked together?
I guess what you want to do is you want to avoid a situation where it looks like you're eating meat and milk together. According to Tosfos, there's a very simple solution to that.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is make sure your hands and your mouth are clean of meat. You've terminated that suit and started a new suit. But according to the Rosh and the Rambam, in order to not mesh, meaning overlap 2 seudos, you have to wait a certain period of time.
Right.
How much of a time period? The time period where normally you would wait to start another Suda. So that time period allows you to set up a new su'uda. So you haven't eaten milk and meat in one su'uda. Eating milk and meat in one su'uda could cause you at some point to mistakenly cook meat and milk together.
Mhm.
However, the Shulchan Aruch says, Ochal basar, afilu shel chaya va'of. Who remembers what we discussed here about the three subcategories of basar? Anybody remember?
Domesticated.
Excellent. Domesticated animals, that's
Wild
called behema.
animals.
Wild animals, that's called chaya. And finally,
Chicken.
fowl, chicken. That's called oaf. Says the Shulchan Aruch, there's no difference in these halachas of waiting after meat to eat cheese between any of the three categories of basar. And which one is the most radical chiddush that you have to wait before you eat milk? Chicken, because chicken is derabanan. When the Torah says gidi, we paskin, like Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, one of the Tanoim, that it means different kinds of basar and chaya, but it doesn't refer to oaf. In fact, according to the Torah law, a chicken cheeseburger, I don't know if is there such a thing in the world? Maybe McDonald's, Burger King, but made out of chicken and not meat, would be mutter. Hey guys, you talk about liberal, that sounds great. I can't eat a cheeseburger, but at least I can eat a chicken cheeseburger. That's on a Doraisa. The Rabbanan said no. We're going to consider fowl and chicken as if it were meat. And not only that, we're going to prohibit you from eating fowl, meaning chicken, in the same meal as gvina. So you got to terminate the meal. How do you terminate the meal? Lo yochal gvina ad sheyisha sheishos. Who is the Shulchan Aruch accepting? The Rambam. The Rambam, if you recall, said you have to wait 6 hours, and that's how it's upgepaskin in the Shulchan Aruch. How many centuries were there between the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch? 300 years plus. 3 centuries after the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch codified the halacha, and he accepted the Rambam, at least in this case. I wouldn't say he always accepts the Rambam. So how long do you have to wait after chicken in order to eat cheese? 6 hours. Everybody have that? That's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch.
Why did they originally say that chicken is not meat?
The Torah says gedi. Gedi is a goat, a kid.
Right.
So the Torah says that you're not allowed to cook a kid in its mother's milk. Doesn't say anything about fowl.
I thought.
Oh, what was your
days,
question, Bob?
Chicken wasn't meat.
That's what I'm telling you. According to
Right.
the Bible, according to your Torah that you observe, chicken is not meat.
Right.
You're allowed to eat a chicken cheeseburger.
So the only reason is because they're afraid that people are going to think it's meat and they'll eat
Exactly.
chicken.
People, once you let them eat chicken, they're going to eat meat, and it's not going to be good for the Jews. Okay, let's get back to the Shulchan Aruch. So how long am I waiting after meat in order to eat cheese? 6 hours. We're not finished. Afilim shah kishir. Even if he waited 6 hours, hold everything. Im yesh basar ben hashinayim. If he has meat, particles of meat caught between his teeth, how would you say that in English? Not splinters. Splinters is in your foot.
That's it, meat between your teeth.
Particles of meat between your teeth. There's got to be a word for it in English. But I don't know what it is. Anyway, so you have particles of meat caught between your teeth.
Strands of meat.
Sarech lasiro. He's got to remove them. Even though he waited what? 6 hours.
That's why they give toothpicks.
Valois letinok tzarech lahamti. You have a newborn baby or an infant, and you want to feed the infant some sort of solid substance, but the infant has no teeth. So what do? You chew it up, but you don't swallow it. So what happens if I chewed up meat without swallowing it? The Machaber says still have to wait 6 hours. And not only that, I have to guarantee that there are no particles of meat caught between my teeth. Now, I don't know about you, gentlemen, but I had my wisdom teeth extracted. And ever since that, my teeth started moving. Hopefully not this way, but that way. And after I eat a piece of meat, I can spend at least, and I'm not exaggerating, 15 minutes, probably twice that amount, trying to get out the particles of meat between my teeth.
That's why I avoid meat. Okay.
In fact, I would like to have the dentist put a little something in those holes. Can
Filler.
he fill them in?
And then,
Yeah. That's going to be my next, but since COVID, I haven't been to the dentist much. Once I went to the dentist, it was like an emergency. Comes along the Ramah. Now, what is the Ramah? Rav Moshe Isserlis, he lived at the time of the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch. He was a contemporary. We're going back 5 centuries. He came from the countries of Ashkenaz, meaning like Poland, Germany, Holland, those kind of countries. And he wrote his own gloss on the Shulchan Aruch. He originally wrote his own Shulchan Aruch, but then Rav Karo beat him to it, Rav Yosef Karo. Therefore, he just wrote his own comments on the Shulchan Aruch. And he writes the following. Im Motza Basar ben Hashinaim, if he has meat between his teeth, umasiro, and he removes it, tzarech ladiach peh, he still has to rinse out his mouth before he eats cheese. So now we have the following 3 conditions. Number 1, you have to wait 6 hours. Number 2, you have to guarantee that you've removed all the particles of meat between your teeth. And number 3, you've got to rinse out your mouth. Then the Ramah says, V'yesh omrim di'ein tzarech lahamtin. He's now referring to the Tosfos and Rabbeinu Tam. They were the ones of the opinion that it's not a matter of waiting a certain period of time. You just got to separate one Suda from the other. The Suda in which you eat basar ends, and then you immediately begin a Suda for milching. Miyad, immediately, im silek. What does silek mean? He removes what? He wants to terminate the first Suda. What does he have to remove? Who remembers?
table.
The table. Ubirech birkas hamazon. Mutter al yidei kinuach v'adoch. He has to first wash his hands, and then he has to rinse out his mouth. 4 conditions. Number 1, he has to remove the table. Number 2, he's got to recite birkas hamazon. Number 3, he has to wash out his mouth. And number 4, he has to wash his hands. That's all he has to do.
Back to that chicken for a second. Why wouldn't fish be in that category? And I know Sephardim don't mix fish and
So Sephardim don't mix a fish and milk or fish and cheese for a health reason.
Oh, it's a health reason?
It's totally a health reason.
Oh,
it's not a legal reason. There was a belief that if you mix fish and milk, it's not healthy. It could cause you real problems. We don't have that.
Did you have herring with cream with sour cream?
I would not invite a Sephardi for that.
So I'll eat the rest of it, whatever. Okay.
But fish is a separate category, and it's not called basar. Fish is not called basar. It's not called meat. Chicken, we said, we'll have to upgrade it to the status of meat because people confuse it. But fish is parva. Eggs are parva.
It's funny.
So if it's parva, then why can't you have it on the same plate as the meat?
Have what on the same
The
plate?
fish.
That we'll have to get to next week. But I want to finish up on this week because you're asking me advanced questions, guys. Go easy on me.
But it's funny what you said about the milk and the fish. It's why don't mix it. Because my grandmother showed them. She always tell us when I was a kid, don't drink milk and fish. And she was in Vienna. not she's not a Sephardi, anybody, she's the Eka. And so
No, no.
she was descendant of the Rambam. I don't know how any of this would make
I don't
my
know.
grandmother say, don't be fishing.
I don't know. There must have been.
You never listened to her.
Must have been some Sephardic
Right?
heritage, like you say. She descended from the Rambam.
Yeah.
Listen,
Sephardim. Yeah.
Oh,
That's why
I didn't know that either.
listen to this, Rabbosai. V'haminag. This is the Ramah. V'haminag ha'poshet b'medinos elu. What would you expect the Ramah is going to say now, if you had to guess? What is the accepted custom in our Gegen, in our area of Poland? 6 hours, right? Lahamtin achar achilas habasar shah achas. The Ramah says that in our areas, he lived in the city of Varsha, of Warsaw, we wait 1 hour. Now, wait a second. Until now, we had 6 hours. Maybe the Rosh would have 12 hours. I don't know. And then we had immediately after the basar, you're allowed to eat milk. We never had 1 hour. But he says
the only people that continue that are the Dutch.
The Dutch. So this is the Dutch minion. The Dutch custom was the most widespread custom in Poland at the time of the Ramah. But who picked up on it? The Dutch. They held firm. But over the course of time, the rest of Poland dropped the minhag of 1 hour, as we'll soon see.
When was he around? I forgot.
5 centuries ago, the Ramah, Ramosh Isilis. Well, wait a second. That's what they told me when I was a child. So by now it's closer to 6 centuries. Anyway, so in our Medinos, how long are we going to wait? 1 hour. 1 hour. Miu, however, we have other conditions. Tzarich levarech birkas hamazon. Okay, fine. And then it becomes a separate suda. Interesting, he doesn't mention anything about Siluk HaShulchan because probably by the time the Ramah, they didn't have separate tables for each person individually. In any event, after birkas hamazon, that's fine. 1 hour. It doesn't matter whether you first waited an hour and then you recited Birkas Hamazon, or immediately you recited Birkas Hamazon and then you waited an hour. Fine. However, if he finds that he still has particles of meat caught between his teeth even after the hour, he's got to pluck it out, somehow. Now they have different kinds of toothpicks, I don't know if you've seen them, this kind, that kind. They even have a machine that spritzes water into you, like the dentist. The ein yesh omrim, the ein levarech birkas hamazon al manas lechol gvina. Hey, you know what? I just eat meat. I want to eat cheese. I'll just recite birkas hamazon. And farta gamaisa. I ended my suda. And now I'm going to eat milk. He says that there were some who said that's not right. To recite Birkas Hamazon before you finish the meal, just in order to allow yourself to eat milk. But he says, people are not careful. So getting back to my paradigm in case of Shavuos, I ate my meat. Now I want to eat balinces, cheese balinces. What do? I recite Birkas Hamazon. I wash my hands. I wash my mouth out. And according to Rabbeinu Tam, I can immediately eat my balinces. According to the Dutch minhag, which the Ramah says was widespread in his time, I got to wait an hour. But I'm allowed to bench. Even though there were those who weren't so comfortable with the idea of benching when you're not really finished with your Suda. Who you fooling? Aval, he says, however, yesh medagdikim lahamtin sheish shos. There are those who are very religious and they follow the Shulchan Aruch, which is based, as we said, on the Rambam, and they wait 6 hours. Not 1 hour, but 6 hours. V'chein nachon lasos.
Wait 6 hours.
The Ramah says it's proper to wait 6 hours. After the Ramah gave this whole presentation that in our area of the world, the accepted widespread custom is to wait 1 hour. Now he says, you know what? I would advocate and recommend that you wait 6 hours. A little bit disappointed. But that's what the Ramah says.
If we wait 6 hours, does the washing the hands and washing the mouth also have to happen? Nothing in teeth. You have to wash your hands and your mouth. Because I don't think anybody that I know thinks about anything. 6 hours passes, you jump into the fridge and get the milk. Right? They have to wash their hands and the mouth.
The Ramah
And
doesn't.
remove the table?
The Ramah says that Yesh medagdik lahamtin sheishos. He doesn't mention anything about kinuach and netilas yadayim.
Very interesting.
Yeah, kinuach and netilas yadayim are required when you're going to eat milchiks immediately after fleishiks, because then. Now the Shach says, "Kol misha yesh bo reach Torah." Did you ever hear that phrase, reach Torah? He has like a shmek of Torah. He'll be makbid to wait 6 hours. And the Taz says that we should make a protest against those who wait less than 6 hours. The Chassam Sofer writes, now where was the Chassam Sofer? Anybody know? Your roots are in Vienna? He came from Pressburg in Hungary. Again, Pressburg was, sometimes it was in Austria, sometimes Hungary, but today in Pressburg, by the way, you can see the Chassam Sofer's kever, and the bus stop will tell you where to get off in Slovakian. They'll tell you this is the, the tombstone of the Chassam Sofer. They get a lot of, Jewish tourists for them. Says the Chassam Sofer Chole, a person who's ill, and he has to drink milk lirafu asa. What does lirafu asa mean? As a cure, as a remedy. Eino tzorach lahamtin achar achiloso shel basar yoser misha. He could be a Dutchman. He could follow the minog of 1 hour, just like the Ramah said that was the widespread accepted custom in his time. So again, a chole who's not feeling well, he benches after meat, waits an hour, and he's allowed to drink milk. My daughter just gave birth a few days ago. Yeah, I don't know if I told you. On Shabbos, she gave birth, and she's now living with us here, about a minute's walk from here. And I believe that the Chassam Sofer would allow her, as a yoledes, a woman who just gave birth, to wait 1 hour after meat and then to drink milk. That's what I believe. The Ramah writes it about a chole, but I would say how much more so a woman after childbirth. Now, do we accept the opinion of the Ramah? As we saw in the Shach and the Taz, they both say that we have to be careful to wait 6 hours. Sfaradim will have to accept the Shulchan Aruch and wait 6 hours. A chole, all right, 1 hour. A Dutchman, 1 hour. Soon we'll see the Yeki minhag, the German minhag. We'll get to that in a minute. Says Rav Avadia Yosef, Afal pi shanachnu kibalnu horos maron utzrichem lishal sheish shos bein basel lechol mikom makom litzorach choli ktsas. If someone is ill, even a little bit, hoshit sheish lahatir leechol machle cholav sha'achas achar sudas bos. So what we saw in the Chassam Sofer is now accepted by Rav Avadia Yosef. A chole, he's not well, let him wait 1 hour. However, not everyone's happy with this. because some are of the opinion that once we accepted the psak, the final view that you wait 6 hours, then you're not allowed to eat gvina. But Lamaisa, it seems that we could be making. But what about the following scenario? A man forgot about the fact that he ate meat. Okay, a short period of time went by, and he made a bracha on cheese. Boom! After he makes the bracha on cheese, he realizes, hey, I can't eat cheese. I got to wait 6 hours. But if he doesn't eat cheese, then what's going to happen if he has nothing else on the table but cheese? It's a bracha l'vatala. He's a wasted bracha. What should he do in that case? If he eats the cheese, then he has violated the minhag, the custom of waiting 6 hours, but at least he saves the bracha. If on the other hand he doesn't eat cheese, he's going to violate the Isra of Lotisa Shem Hashem Lashav. Don't take God's name in vain. It is a bracha vatala, but at least he didn't eat milk.
The Shem Hashem is the Raisa, though.
And that's the Rambam Shita, that the Isra of bracha vatala is the Raisa, and therefore many poskim will say, will allow him to drink the milk, even though we are very hesitant to allow milchiks after fleishiks without waiting 6 hours. But in this case, even though he's not a chola, but to save him from a violation of bracha l'vatola, of a wasted in vain bracha, we will allow him to drink milk.
Couldn't you say just Baruch Shem Kavod after the bracha?
I would tell you this, Brent. Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso might help you a little bit, but it's not a real solution. And not only that, you'd have to say it immediately. So that's called a bracha l'vatola. We don't want to mess around with bracha l'vatola. Go ahead and drink the milk.
But he can eat the cheese and then use as a backup. You know what? The Yekish don't wait 6 hours. That's what
Right. All this is all based on the backup. That's for sure. Because again, the requirement of 6 hours is only what? Is only a chumrah. That's an extra step.
No question that he
But in this sefer called Tzurba Derabanan, my eyes popped out. He quotes from Moshe Levi. I don't know who he is. I think he was once the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, if I'm not mistaken. And he writes that, you know what? Don't drink the milk. Why? Because you're not allowed to drink milk after meat. And if you drink the milk, you're drinking something that's forbidden, and the bracha remains a bracha vatol. You gain absolutely nothing by drinking the milk. Because when you make a bracha and then you eat something which you're prohibited from eating, the bracha is called a bracha vatol.
But only in some circles, though.
What do you mean in some circles? He's assuming that once we accepted the 6 hours, then we're not allowed to eat milk. That's what I'm pointing out. And he was the chief rabbi of the Sfaradim who accepted the psak of the Rambam and of the Shulchan Aruch that you have to wait 6 hours, and you're not allowed to eat milk or cheese before the 6 hours pass. And if you eat it, you're eating something that's prohibited. And this is what's called in Brisker language an isa chefza. I would have said that even if you accepted a minhag not to eat not to eat milk, that's only an isa gabra. It's not an isa chefza. He's taking it like a neder. It's like a pledge, and it's chal on the cheese. And therefore, if you ate the cheese, you're violating an isa. All right, what time is it now? I don't want to go 8:30. So let me just conclude with the following. And that is that the poskim quote another minute, and that would sort of like complete all the possibilities. And that is to wait 3 hours. And this you'll see on page 133, I believe. And we're not sure exactly where this 3 hours came from. It's like almost a compromise sheet. You know, there's 0 and 1, and then there's 6, and somewhere in the middle, the dice fell on number 3. So, Bob, before we conclude, what was the question you asked me? I wanted to do some more research about it. Do you remember? About 15 minutes ago.
Having meat and and
Chicken.
fish on the same, no.
Oh, on the
it's
same plate.
On the same plate.
Right. It says separate. Okay, I'll try to research that. All right then. So this is where we'll stop, and I wish you all a great night. Thank you.